So, the last time I did a video on my top 10 Final Fantasy songs. This time, however, I'm doing a list on my top 10 favorite character themes. Note that these are entirely my opinion, and if you don't agree with them, that's okay. Please feel free to tell me your favorite character themes in the comments below. These will be in no particular order of preference, and the listing is more of an arbitrary notion than anything else. Before we get to our list, I will make a special note here. Home Sweet Home will not be included on this list, even if it is one of my absolute favorite Final Fantasy tunes. Since it's already been on one list, it will not be included in this one. Number 10, Steiners' theme from Final Fantasy IX. A somewhat awkward but catchy song, mixing several bits and pieces that really shouldn't fit together that well, but do. The tambourine mimics Steiner's constant chainmail clanking together, and the gyro produces something that makes one think of all the rust he has covering his dingy armor. However, under all the disjointed character hints is a more noble setting. The piano and the clarinet float along easily with the trombone and tuba bass line, providing a solid base of nobility under all that muck and rust. Number 9, Golbez, Clad in Darkness, from Final Fantasy IV. The organ in this piece is downright menacing. It perfectly encapsulates the bad guy we find in Golbez, and invokes a bit of Phantom of the Opera, and more that reminds me a bit of Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach. It lends itself really well to the villainous side of the character. His ruthlessness and determination really come through in this piece. It's a shame that After Years didn't find some way to twist it to make it more heroic or atoneful. Number 8, Oren's theme from Final Fantasy X. Did you ever notice that there's a bit of an homage to Lunatic Pandora from 8 in Oren's theme? Really give the two tracks a listen sometime when you get the chance. It's nothing major, but it is there if you really pay attention. Oren's theme seems like something we'd have all heard way back in Square's Super Nintendo heyday. A somber, sad piece with a choir backing and a bit of synthesized computer beeps. It seems a little out of place given the setting of the story, but then given the truth about Oren, it's not such an odd decision. Number 7, Shadow's theme from Final Fantasy VI. Shadow's theme is different. One doesn't normally equate ninjas with spaghetti westerns, but it oddly fits. The idea of a roaming wanderer with nothing but a trusty animal by his side who'd do anything for a bit of coin sounds oddly like what many in the Old West did for a living. It's a theme so out of place to the world and yet really fitting. It's also pretty catchy, and you'll find yourself humming it before you know it. Number 6, The Oath, or Squall's theme from Final Fantasy VIII. When you hear the song play as Squall gives his rousing speech to Balam Garden, most are shocked that Squall, the token emo, could ever express all that motion. Squall is much more of an internal character, hence why we are constantly in his head to see his thoughts and motivations more clearly. But this song lends a lot of weight to Squall's actual caring personality. There's also strangely a good bit of this piece that reminds me of Chrono Trigger. I'm not sure if it's just how it's orchestrated or put together, but it's kind of nice to hear nonetheless in our modern day and age. Number 5, Linna's theme from Final Fantasy V. A sad and somber little piece that sounds like it's from an old rusty music box, until the organ and the orchestra kicks in. It's been remixed in more recent years with Clash on the Big Bridge, which is a really fucking odd choice, but it sounds amazing. It's kind of a theme that's sort of been forgotten over the years or dismissed because it's from Final Fantasy V, but it's a really great tune that I feel needs more attention. Number 4, Hope's theme from Final Fantasy XIII. I actually like Hope as a character, and I think he gets a lot of flack he doesn't really deserve, considering he's just a kid in the events of 13. His theme is also a nice departure from pretty much every other musical piece in the game, being with it entirely orchestral and more like something I'd hear in a seaside village in Chrono Cross than in the rock-heavy Final Fantasy XIII. Number 3, Dreams and Pride, Angeal's theme from Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. It's such a damned shame that Crisis Core is a PSP-only title. It tells such a good story and reveals a good bit about both Zack and the dichotomies of the Final Fantasy VII universe that we don't get in the main game because it was on the PSP only. Not as many people played it as it deserves, since Sony has this really nasty theme of dropping support for their handheld systems willy-nilly. Vita! I had really hoped that at some point Square would give us an HD remake of Crisis Core for the PS4, similar to how Birth by Sleep and the Kingdom Hearts 2.5 collection was done. I can still hold out hope, I suppose, but if nothing else, everyone should give the cutscenes a watch on YouTube, as there's some great story bits and some wonderful music in the game, with Angeal's theme being a big standout. Number 2, Cid's theme from Final Fantasy VII. We tend to forget in the course of saving the planet that Sid was actually someone trained and employed by Shinra for the specific purpose of going into space. In the original version of the game, Sid was still the pilot of the Shinra No. 26 rocket, but his purpose was to take the materia payload up to Meteor to destroy it without his knowledge. Shinra lied to him and told him he was traveling to the moon, i.e. they were kind of leading him on an unknown suicide run. Regardless, even if you forget his past dealings with Shinra, his theme music's actually pretty telling. It's more militaristic sounding than the others, but it's also much more mechanical sounding, relating to his handiwork in building the tiny Bronco, the High Wind, and even his own spears. It's one of those songs that just gets you pumped when you hear it, as it's so hopeful and triumphant. And now on to our honorable mentions. Those things that didn't quite make the cut, but I felt needed to be mentioned anyway. Penelo's theme from Final Fantasy XII. Did you know that only 2 characters in 12 get actual character themes? Ash and Penelo get themes solely devoted to them, whilst the others just have songs that tend to kind of play in the background when they're involved. Penelo's theme is equal parts playful and beautiful, sort of like the dancer class most equate her to. Her theme also has a small nod to the Giza Plains, which is kind of nifty. Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII. This theme is entirely overplayed, and though it's a lovely tune, I feel it overshadows a lot of the other fantastic musical pieces in 7. Why does the choral prison theme get no love? It's amazing! Yet at the same time, it's such a pretty and nice song that I can't help but love it, especially in a certain Genova fight. You all know the one I mean. Edward's theme, Melody of Lute from Final Fantasy IV. Edward's theme encompasses both his abilities as a bard and his love for Anna, as we see in the after years that he plays it in remembrance of her. I can't help but put it on this list, even if it's disregarded by most. If you ever get the chance, hunt up the version on the Celtic Moon soundtrack. Number 1. Coin Song from Final Fantasy VI. This one is actually almost a cheat, but not really. Coin Song is actually a reprise of the track Edgar and Sabin, i.e. the theme played in Figaro Castle. However, I tend to equate Coin Song more with the two, as it's played in their flashbacks and in the ending theme as well. It's a really sweet but sad melody that's gotten some really great fan orchestrations over the years, and that I would absolutely love to hear done on a pair of acoustic guitars for the A New World concert series. Hey guys, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and remember, the world is square.